Hoi, hello and welcome to the Meet Maastricht podcast. I'm Katrina and together with our resident local Lucy, we will be exploring some of the amazing stories that make Maastricht so special. So sit back, relax and join us as we learn about our favourite Dutch city. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 35 of the Meet Maastricht podcast. This is part 2 of our frequently asked questions discussion with special guest Jus Minnes. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, that one is up and ready for you. Otherwise, stay tuned for part 2. For me, when I looked up Maastricht, just tying into a different sort of question or topic, carnival is definitely one of the big things that comes up, but someone asked a sort of what kinds of things Maastricht is known for. So like Vlaai, the history of the Sphinx area, and the caves in St. Peter, which we've already spoken about. But what kinds of things do you think Maastricht are emblematic of Maastricht and the area?
I think many people know Maastricht as the birthplace of the European Union.
Okay.
Of course. So the Treaty of Maastricht in 1992 was the treaty which put the European Union into place as a I don't know as what actually, but it was a very important treaty.
It was a step closer to forming a union as opposed to just the regular type of treaties between states that have been concluded between rulers since about the 16th, 17th century. So it was an extension of international law, and meaning that parts of the autonomous rule of individual states was transferred to this union. So Brussels can decide things that no longer can be decided by the capitals. But of course, in Brussels, the capitals are represented by their heads of state, by their parliamentarians, and by commissioners. So although in the last type that is not officially the case, those people are not supposed to work specifically for the nation state they come from. And there was, the Treaty of Maastricht gave Maastricht a very bad name in large parts of Europe. In the French countryside, if you say Maastricht, people take 2 steps back. So there, I will evade the question of where exactly I'm from when I'm asked, because it made the city hate it.
Oh. So what would you think that Maastricht is most well known for other than that, Lucy?
Well, at the moment, it's the contemporary tourist information kitsch. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, it's so gezellig. Oh, come shop. Shop till you drop.
Well, at the moment, people can't quite shop till they drop because all the shops are shut.
No, but what is it known for? That is what it's known for. And
I know, André Rieu.
Yes, and that André Rieu. Because when I was living in Holland, people kept asking me why did you leave Maastricht? I mean, such a pretty town. I said, oh God, and it's a total misrepresentation, of course, what the place is and what it used to be. Of course, now parts of it are a pretty town, yes, and terribly in danger.
All of it is, Lucy.
Okay, to us, in danger of being being horribly overexploited. I think for a long, long time, Maastricht has been a pilgrim's destination. The city of Sauvage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And also looking at the fortifications, it probably was. Jus, help me out here. The city
Boulevard des Pays-Bas.
No,
It was.
Boulevard? I thought
Boulevard.
Fortress.
Yeah, the fortress of the Netherlands. You had to conquer Maastricht in order to conquer the rest of the Netherlands.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So Bulwark of the Netherlands was its nickname for centuries. Okay. I don't know what is Maastricht known for now. I think André Rieu, indeed. Yeah. Yes. Mm. Google's no animal meat burger.
Okay.
which comes from Maastricht.
Yeah,
Oh.
true.
But people don't know that it comes from Maastricht. So
No.
what is
Yeah.
Maastricht known for? Yeah,
Well, I know someone did say the fly is from Maastricht, which is
The fly is from
The
all of
fly.
the south, pretty much. I mean, yeah.
that's typical Limburgish.
yeah. I remember when we went up north, and I told Lucy this, that knowing what it is, knowing fly, and living in the south, when we went up north, there was shops that were purporting to sell fly, and I was perturbed because they were weird cakey things, and I was like, that's not right. So to me it is very southern and from Maastricht.
Yeah, but you should go to IJsden or to Gulpen. They also have fly there.
Yeah, and bigger pieces too.
Something that people were interested in was the Hell's Gate. That was something else someone asked about, which the Helpoort is, and that's something that I don't know much about because we haven't spoken much about the Helpoort on the podcast. So I'm interested in what it is, and I know where it is, but the history of the Helpoort.
Well, it was built as a city gate, right? At the south where the Jeker flows through the city, and then they realized that they actually put the wall on the wrong place. So if you have this swampy area, which that area used to be very swampy.
Yeah.
Then if you build a wall, you stir up the ground, and you make another climate there at that point. And then the Jeker actually became less swampy, and then you couldn't use it anymore as a moat. So they built the wall, they built a gate in the wall, and then apparently in 30, 40 years later, the moat turned into ground, and then they had to rebuild the wall a couple of meters further on, which is where now the Vive Cup is. And then the Helpoort was no longer in use as a gate, and they demolished the wall, left and right of the gate, and they used the gate, I believe, first as a guild hall, and then later on as a magazine of some sorts.
Storage space.
For the storage place, yeah. So I believe for the paper mills who were at the Jeker at that time.
Oh, okay.
And then in the 19th century, they only had the Helpoort left as a city gate, and they reconstructed it.
Ah, okay.
So that's the history of the Helpoort. It was only for a very short time really a city gate.
And how did it get its name?
That has to do, I believe, unless you want to tell this, Lucy, it has to do with Jeker being right next to it, I believe, because the hell has nothing to do with hell as in we tend to think of the hell as the place, a fiery place of where people go
Yes.
if they've been bad, right? After they have died, and but actually it comes from a Germanic religious idea, and it is not as much a fiery place as well as a very cold and watery place, a very wet place, and that is, I think, where Helpoort comes from. It's the water gate, because it was a very swampy area.
Yeah.
So the wet gate, Helpoort.
Okay.
I assume there are some other theories about where the names come from. It feels like a name that would be rife for theories of where it comes from.
Yeah.
If you name something Helpoort, then everybody immediately thinks about the hell.
Yeah.
But it's in German they talk about helles Wasser, and this is the same hell.
Yeah.
And also our word for hell is because it means wet place and not fiery place. It's very funny that we think of hell as a very fiery place.
Yeah, fire and brimstone. Someone obviously popularized.
Somebody did, yeah.
Was it Dante's Inferno? Maybe.
I think so.
Don't know.
I think so. It wasn't me, that's for sure.
And what is it now? There's a museum in there, isn't there?
That's right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether they're open or what's going on with them. I will have a look for our listeners and try and put some information in. But that's one I have not visited, so hopefully I'll get there in the future as well.
Yeah, they are planning on a whole new interior for the museum,
nice.
and it's great to go there, really.
Yeah, how exciting.
The building is fascinating, of course. I mean, you are looking straight at the Middle Ages, going up that stairway, and the organization there is Maastricht Vestingstad, so Maastricht fortified city, and they in normal times also provide tours around the fortifications in the city, both above and underground, because old Maastricht is encircled in its entirety by underground fortifications, which you can walk, except not now. But Maastricht Vestingstad provides those tours, and they have a little museum, and they show a film inside the Hellgate when it's open, just not now.
Yeah, I mean, and not far from there, is the big piece of wall or structure that has fallen and has crumbled. I think people walking through the city now will stand out to them. Do you know anything about that? As a question for newcomers who think, oh, there's a big construction going on with part of that bit.
Well, a part of the wall fell down.
Yeah.
Which it is designed to do. It's just the case with Notre Dame. When the Notre Dame caught on fire, the roof burnt off of the building, which it is supposed to do. You know, you construct a roof and then you construct it like that if it burns, it does not burn through the building. It just burns off.
Yeah. Okay.
The same as with. It's very nice to see a breach like this. It used to occur like every 50 years whenever there was a siege. Then the wall would crumble like that. And apparently now it has to do with lots of water, climate change actually. Too much water inside of the wall, because the wall is just made of dirt. Okay. And then the wall, you also call that wall, right? So the stones that were constructed against it, their only function is to hold the dirt wall in place. Yeah. And that crumbled down.
Okay. And I know that they were taking a while sort of making sure that they reconstructed that properly. Is that right? That they were trying to put it back the way it was?
Yeah, there have been some ideas to just put on to leave it as it was now, just to show the breach. Yep. But they've decided to build it back up the way it was before.
And in the meantime, they are sort of excavating it as well. Now they have a chance to sort of look into this earthenwork. They are researching it, and they are finding parts of masonry that was attached to the inside of the wall, and they're finding old guard rooms that have become filled up with dirt. So it's an archaeological dig for the moment too. And that normally you wouldn't go and dig up your earthenwork defenses, but now that it has collapsed, they might as well have a look and document it.
Good opportunity to investigate.
Yeah. So you can just say that the front fell off.
The front fell off. I noticed that they had drained some of the water as well.
Yeah.
Which wasn't the case for a while, but at the moment they have drained quite a lot of the water away.
Yeah, so they can reach it better.
Yeah, and have big machinery right in front of the wall, stuff like that. So it's just for practicality's sake. It'll come back. It'll all come back. Don't worry about it.
Is there an estimate for how long that will take?
No.
I don't know. No.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting because that's been. If we see what progress we see, because I've been here since 2019, and we will, depending on what happens, my partner's contract ends in a year and a half, couple of years. So it will be really interesting to see how much progress we see, because we haven't really seen it normal.
No.
So
if you go from the crumbled down wall and you just go to the west, you can see other parts of the wall, and then you can very easily imagine that the same kind of gray rocks are on the other side.
Yeah,
it's the same. But what is interesting now, when this campaign is going on and will be taken down once the wall is restored, is the how would you call this? The barriers they have put around it. They have now we've got this sort of pop-up fortifications museum right there. They have put large canvases on those barriers, which explain lots of stuff about the fortifications and how they were built and how they were used. And that's and that's something you can go and look at right now, because it's outside and it's free, and you can go there by yourself.
And it's up onto, you're walking up the stairs onto the fortifications, and there's a cannon on a big round rampart bit.
I am not sure you can go there now, because that had started to become unstable as well. So I think they've closed the bastion off.
Yeah.
But the information I am talking about is right in front of the Poort Waarachtig. So where the street goes through the wall. So that it's right on street level. So it's very accessible.
Something that Matthew, my partner, asked, which I thought was an interesting question, was when different powers took over the city. So during the French occupation and things like that, did things change a lot in the city, and did they bring a lot of French citizens with them, or did things sort of stay relatively the same for sort of ordinary people in the city?
Well, that really depends on the time.
Yeah.
So before there was nationalism, which is something from the 19th century, there was no idea of French citizens who came to the city.
Okay.
But for instance, when the French came in 1673 and in 1748, they were regarded as the Liberators of Maastricht.
Okay.
Because they liberated Maastricht from the Protestant north and could make it whole again with the Catholic south. Okay. And of course, people in Maastricht at that time were bilingual. So they spoke Maastricht and French. They regarded themselves, well, not as French, but as Catholics, and the French were Catholics as well. So these were liberations of the Protestant north. When the French came in 1794, well, things changed a lot. I believe we talked about that already with the revolution, French Revolution. But that's also not really that there were people who coming from France over here. It's more a revolutionary spirit which took a hold of the people. Does that answer your question, or Matthew's question?
Yeah, sort of. I guess because I know that there are, I can't think of any, but I'm sure there are examples when places are taken over, maybe in a different sense, invaded more than, because it wasn't really, as you said, it's more of a liberation than an invasion, that they bring people from with them to live there. But I guess it's sort of, it's an interesting cultural situation as well. And with the language too, that a lot of people were bilingual, so that's linguistically they weren't as different as some other groups might be.
For a long time, the talented boys of Maastricht would get their higher education in mostly French-speaking cities. To the south, and it's I think the main thing to realize here is what you said first. Try and liberate your own mind of this idea of nationalism, because that is, the whole concept of nation states is 19th century. And, before that, borders were, just as fluid as they still are. But allegiances, they depended on military campaigns.
Yeah.
But below that, much more stably, is that a word? Stably, in a much more stable fashion.
Yeah.
There would be similarities in languages and customs and culture.
Yeah. I think some of that is also my bias, just as someone who grew up on an island, which is a relatively young colonized nation anyway. So the fluidity of that is something that is not familiar, as familiar to me, which I think is probably that's where we come from as our understanding.
When we speak of the French army of, for instance, 1748, the army was not French. It did not consist of French people. It consisted of people from all over Europe and the colonies who fought for the king of France, which is why we call it the French army, but that doesn't make those people French.
No.
So, for instance, the man who conquered Maastricht in 1748 was Danish.
Right. Okay.
Who fought for the French king.
There you go.
So, yeah. And most of his soldiers were from Germany. So that's really something to always keep in mind, that Europe has always been Europe.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. One of my questions was, I don't know if this is an easy question or not, but it's what is the oldest building in Maastricht and how did it survive so long?
I have a very annoying answer to this.
Oh no.
The oldest building of Maastricht is in the cellar of Hotel Derlon. And it's the Roman ruins of Maastricht.
Ah, yes.
And how did they survive for so long? Well, they were underground.
Yeah. What is the oldest building that is still a building?
Very annoying. I think the honor goes either to the Church of Our Lady,
Okay.
or the St. Sylvas.
Yeah.
And
I guess they were very important buildings, so.
They were the only stone buildings.
Ah, okay, yes.
So all the other buildings were made of wood.
Yeah.
And they were the only buildings that, if you build a house and then you decide the house is ugly, and you tear it down 100 years later, then you reuse the stones. But with churches, it's not that easy. It's mostly because they are just too big, and because they are still being used as a church.
Yes, their ongoing usage, I think, makes a huge difference to buildings just in general, to continuous use from when they're built, and they end up just being fixed rather than rebuilt or destroyed.
Yeah. So the first St. Sylvas is from the 7th century, and then the building we see now is from around 1100, I think, Lucy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it has been added to and enlarged and got a new vaulted ceiling and stuff. But yes, the main thing, is Romanesque.
So those are the oldest buildings.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed, as I said, coming from the colonial history of Australia. Our oldest buildings aren't very old compared to the buildings here, and even the baby buildings, the relatively young ones from the 18th century or the 19th century, always seem so old to me. But one of my questions was sort of related to that, I guess, where how did the university end up in sort of dotted throughout the city in all these old buildings? Because I know when we've spoken on the podcast, a lot of the buildings have been sort of reused and repurposed by the university and moved around. And how did that happen?
Well, I think that has started off by Maastricht being medieval and early modern Maastricht being absolutely littered with churches and convents and safe houses for the abbeys out in the country. So there was an enormous amount of religious buildings here on account of Maastricht being well defended. You know, you could be safe here, and also on account of, well, the tasks that the different religious orders set themselves in educating the people and taking care of them, which of course brought many of the urban orders to Maastricht, like the Franciscans and the Dominicans. So there was an enormous amount of those buildings, and over time they had all been deserted by these religious orders who had built them originally and used them originally. So they were repurposed to an extent, they were restored, refurbished to an extent, but by the time we are into about the 60s, 70s of the last century, many of those buildings were standing empty, being boarded up, falling into disrepair. So there was a lot of vacant real estate here,
Right.
and more or less at the same time a more general dawning of the realization that we were losing an enormous treasure in having these buildings and treating them this way. And so basically the university has saved the old town, you know, to put it very brutally. I for one am very grateful. So many of these convents and chapels and churches and what have you were taken over by them and repurposed for educational purposes.
Yeah.
I also think that the city was too poor to afford to demolish all these buildings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you take Nijmegen, for instance, it has been bombed during the Second World War, but there also was money to demolish the city and to erect something new there. And in Maastricht there was no money for that. Yeah, it's
too ironic. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was hitting two birds with one stone. You had a place for the university. University could get these beautiful buildings, and they could be preserved for Maastricht. So that's for instance the Minderbroedersberg 4-6, which is now the main seat of the university, right?
Mm-hmm.
That used to be what do you call it? Palace of Justice? No, the courtroom.
Courthouse. The
Courthouse, yeah.
And the prison.
To where the hospital used to be, and then the hospital got a new building. So you only need to build a house to the old hospital, and you use the old courthouse as a seat for the university.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's recycling, really.
Yeah. Practical, very practical.
Very practical, yes.
Yeah.
And now we have all these beautiful buildings that are still around for us to enjoy.
Yeah. Right.
Which is a big difference in when you visit some other cities like Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where obviously they were hit harder by the wars as well, but this sort of desire to build and the money to build that wasn't here leaves you with all these beautiful old buildings, which I think hopefully people appreciate. We appreciate them.
Yeah. Now they do, and there's no telling what it will be like 200 years from now. We'll see.
Yeah, they'll be very old. I thought we would wrap up with one of my questions, which was, what is your favourite story to tell about Maastricht? What is your favourite Maastricht story to tell people?
Oh, Katrina, this is just as horrible as the first one. I mean, please.
To be fair, I sent you the questions in advance.
This is true.
Just so the listeners know, I'm not springing this on Lucy.
No. She is not. To be fair, but reading over them yesterday, I thought, God, I hope she's not going to ask this one.
But what is the story that people seem to enjoy the most? If that's easier, what is the story that people love to hear?
It's a very, very, very difficult question.
Yeah.
Lucy, if I could save you, I would, but I can't.
Yeah, you're having the same problem, of course.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, one that really makes people laugh is a riddle I give them to solve on a walk we have. What have we called it again? The one, the mystery store. That's with Meet Maastricht. That is shorthand for a tour, where I will take people to all sorts of nooks and crannies in the city where they would normally not go, or that they would overlook. And there's one stop on this tour where I point people to colored lines in the tiles on a wall, and I ask them to tell me what it is. And that is always fun and games. But you'll have to come on the tour to know where they are.
That's at the Charles Voscourt, Lucy?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I wonder what it is.
Don't.
No, I'm not going to give it away.
No, please.
So, I've been thinking about what favorite story I have. But it always depends on who you're talking with. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like the story about one of the only anti-tank guns in the Netherlands. My favorite story. I think what I think is my favorite story is the story of 2,000 years of Maastricht in one, and that's really the function of this town as transport town.
Yeah. Why?
So it's really the transloading of goods from one route to another route, which has always taken place here.
Yeah.
With either grain or metal or coals or cement, or right now ideas, in which the university has taken a major role. I think that's a very interesting story to know that when you are transloading something here, whatever it is, that you are standing in the footsteps of people who've lived there for 2,000 years.
Yeah, and who've done this shifting of goods and ideas for longer than that, because of course they're walking through this valley and living on the surrounding hills for much longer than 2,000 years. So it's a crossroads.
I imagine the river definitely would have helped with that, right? Because that is a highway of,
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you there's this place here where you can cross the river, and there's always one person who gets smart and who thinks, if I sell towels at that place, people will buy them because they get wet from crossing the river. And I think that's the beginning of Maastricht. Some guy selling towels.
Yeah. Probably.
Or big plastic boots.
Yeah.
Waders and a fishing rod. Well, thank you very much, Yus, for joining us again. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks.
And Lucy, of course, as always. If either of you would like to add anything for the end of our podcast, you're very welcome to.
Maybe if somebody's listening to this and has another question that they frequently ask themselves.
Yeah.
About Maastricht, of course.
Yeah, about Maastricht. Just ask us.
If you've had visitors and they've asked you a question and you couldn't answer, we will give you the answer, and then next time you won't be stumped.
Well, except when we don't know. I mean, I still do not have a satisfactory tale to tell when people ask, where does the Maastricht flag come from?
The red one with the white star, is that
Yeah.
the one you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. As I come from a country with a flag which is very boring and very easy to explain. So, is it to do with the angel?
No. Just the emblem. I mean, the emblem the angel is holding, and that emblem is on our flag. So it's a red flag with a white 5-pointed star, and we're not really sure, or we don't really agree on where it comes from. But anyway, I don't have a good answer to that question, and I get that almost every walk I do.
Oh. Well, we'll try our best to answer any of your questions. But yes, please send them in to us. We will happily attempt them, as long as it's not about the flag. Thank you so much for listening to the Meet Maastricht podcast. To keep up to date with all our content and events, make sure to follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Meet Maastricht and on Facebook at Come Meet Maastricht. If you love our podcast and would like to see some amazing archival images as you listen, don't forget to subscribe to the Meet Maastricht YouTube channel. If you love what we do and would like to support the Meet Maastricht team, you can also donate through PayPal via our website meetmaastricht.eu. Meet Maastricht is definitely a labour of love, and all of the revenue we make through our tours and events currently goes towards administration costs. With your help, we would love to be able to give back a little something to the team so we can all keep bringing you our favourite stories and showing you our favourite places in Maastricht. Thanks again, and tune in next time to learn more about our beautiful city.
Tot ziens.